What's up, everybody? I am incredibly excited to do this. This is the first IPO student interview that we have ever done. You're number one, bro. So, guys, a little bit of context. How many months ago was this? Two and a
I
half?
think we kicked off, 2.5 months is
So,
when.
2.5 months ago, we launched what we called the IPO beta program. IPO is short for Info Product Operator. We saw an opportunity in the space that really no one was taking advantage of. We had a thesis. We wanted to launch a beta and see if we were right. And boy, were we right. Jonathan is an absolute stud. He's a killer operator. And I just want to do a quick interview with him, just get an idea of what he's doing, what he's doing with his clients, and speak about the IPO model a bit, just to give you guys watching this video some context. So thanks for hopping on with me today, bro. Give a little bit of context of your background before IPO.
I started out kind of in a B2B corporate setup. That was kind of my initial experience in sales. I was a President's Club winner at like a Fortune 300 company. And then around 2020 is when I got into the high ticket space. So that is around about the time that I got on as a high ticket closer. And I'd been doing reasonably all right. I went all in on the space around 2020. I was kind of capped just before getting into the IPO program at around 16K per month. And I'd been there for about 2 years. So it'd been pretty frustrating, but I wasn't able to scale past that. So that was kind of my consistent bottleneck, was just 16K a month. That was kind of my introduction into the space. But I was mainly just focused on the high ticket closing.
So you're doing 16K a month for 2 years. Was that just from closing?
That was from just closing. Yeah.
Yeah. How recently did you start actually operating and doing a bit more outside of you being on sales calls and enacting the orchestration of the business itself?
I had attempted to kind of start doing that about like midway through last year, but
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily have the full picture. Like I knew how to close, I knew how to write scripts for other closers, but I didn't have like an understanding of how to like optimize the funnel or like navigate the CRM component. So that was kind of the main bottleneck for me. Was I had this one skill that I was really, really good at, but I didn't necessarily have a full picture of the rest of it. And the
Mm.
other component was I was doing all of this entirely solo. I didn't really have any coaching around that. I didn't really have any community around me in terms of like what other people were doing as well. I only had the limitations of what I was doing myself and my awareness of that.
I think the most successful people in this space were in sales at some point. Do you feel the same way? Obviously, I think so because you learn the intricacies of the entire thing by doing it yourself before you can be on the operational side. Do you think that had a large impact on, obviously, we'll talk about your success now because it's phenomenal. But do you think that had a big impact on it, was being the closer?
I think closing is, especially in this space, it's a required skill set. It's a good foundation for pretty much everything else. And like you pointed out, like one of the benefits to being a closer is that you're actually speaking to the client. You're on the ground. You're in the actual trenches with it. So I think that closing is probably the optimal like way in. Closing gives you a really, really solid foundation. The downside to closing is that in a way you can get very, very comfortable. So you can hit this point where like you're making 10K months, you're like, damn, like the money's good. You get into this sort of rhythm and you're almost on autopilot. You're like really closing at a high rate. But the real leverage is in being able to like allocate a team. And that's where I think my clients have benefited a lot, building out the sales team and putting in the infrastructure that might be lacking. I think that's where the clients are seeing like the biggest benefit.
I agree, because the whole purpose of IPO, and we'll get into that here in a minute, is to be a force multiplier, right? Like you're good as a closer, but if you want to see 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 plus $100,000 a month, it has to be more than just closing. Because at the end of the day, bro, like sales is great, but it is still a job. You're still
Yeah.
trading time for dollars. Although it's a little bit leveraged, it's not the same, right? So obviously you saw that. That's why you transitioned from closing. Why did you want to do it, and why did you jump into the program in the first place?
Part of it was recognizing that I was kind of stuck, right? So I was really capped at that like 16K point, and that was getting extremely frustrating. The additional aspect of that was like I saw what you were doing in particular, like the content style that you were pushing, and like a lot of what you said in terms of like your approach to even closing resonated with me a lot. So when I saw you kind of push out the idea of like, hey, like this is the next step, I was like, okay, cool. Let's actually work with this guy as opposed from just looking from afar. Let's actually work with somebody that's in this space, that's doing something similar. and doing it very, very well. I think you even said one line in there where you were like, you can either compete with us or you can collaborate with us. And I was like, yeah, sounds about right. Let's do it.
Sales to a sales guy from a sales guy. I think we're the easiest people to sell to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
if someone ever hits me with a good line and it makes logical sense, I'm like, okay, I'll buy. Like, you got to be your ideal customer anyway, you know? There wasn't really a logical next step, which is why this was created, right? So you got in. What was your initial impression? Because again, this was a beta. So courses are cool, but let's just make this raw coaching. So guys, for context, the beta program was a call every day, except for one day of the week, with myself, my COO, systems guy, who is a wizard, my CMO and copywriter, and then our sales manager, who also manages some of the other biggest info companies in the space. We wanted to make it very raw coaching. What was your initial impression getting in? It was 10 grand. That's how much you paid to get in, which is not cheap, especially for a beta. What was that initial impression?
The initial impression was like coming into the community and seeing the other guys. There were a couple of standout guys that were at a similar position to me, where we were both like 20K in or 16 to 20K months kind of. But we were having like kind of client issues that needed a little bit more perspective. There was a good spread of guys, and everybody kind of had their specific skill set. Some of these guys were like very content heavy. Some of these guys were, more on the copywriting side. There were a couple of closers in there as well. So it was a good spread of guys from different skill sets working on similar problems.
What was your opinion on the way we structured the coaching?
Man, I thought it was really, really solid in the sense that like every day you're speaking with somebody who's an expert in their specific niche. The real value comes from being able to workshop your problems that you're dealing with from your clients with the guys on the back end, right? Shout out to Luke Ward. Like the guy has been invaluable in terms of like running correct automations and building out an appropriate funnel in those calls, like just being able to be like, yo, I'm working on this specific thing. This is what the data looks like for what the revenues we're doing right now with this client are. Here's kind of where the drop offs are. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on how we can work through this? Yeah. And just having guys like Ward, Kishan, Sanjay being able to like sit down with you and work through that problem and then talk it through with some of the other guys as well. I think that's the invaluable part of it. There's a lot of value that you lose out on by not having a community that's also in the same space.
I agree. I saw my friend Daniel tweeted yesterday. He's Cold Email Wizard's really, really, really good entrepreneur. He tweeted like the most valuable insights you'll get in business is having a third party look at it because no one wants to think that their baby is ugly. That's very true. I think it's the same way. So I think we're going to keep the same structure, to be honest. It was the beta structure, but being able to get a client and then just pull that client up on a call with experts like in their specific thing and be like, hey, what do we do with this? This is what we're dealing with. These are the numbers. These are stats. And us literally say, okay, do this. And then you just go implement it. Theoretically, you could have no idea what you're doing and just pull it up and get told what to do and you're golden. Obviously, you know what to do. You're a very smart guy. I think we'll keep that structure as well. So, okay. The big question, what are you at right now? What are you making now? You were stuck and now you're doing this new model. You've had the coaching. What are you at now?
For one of my main clients, we were doing like 50 to 60K a month, double that. So we're at 120K a month now. Part of that success came from us like launching a new offer. So it was literally like sitting down with a call with you guys and going like, okay, some of this doesn't really line up. Some of this doesn't really make sense. And then thinking about how we could make that as lucrative as possible. I took that back to my client. We launched, and then we did on that alone, just on the launch, we did 180 or 200K on launch. Me being able to guide that process, I think there was huge upside. My client had a lot of faith in me. So when I took that idea to them, like it worked out well. We did those numbers on that side. We have a B2B drone services client, and this month we've done 110K in revenue for them. So that's been really, really solid. Revenues for myself, where I was making like 16K a month, now we did 30K last month, and then I'll be at 40K this month. So
wow, that's more than double in only 60 days.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And a big part of that is like I've had like 2 additional clients come on, but the increase that I've seen has just come from making the 2 existing clients that I work with more profitable.
I mean, bro, that's the point of IPO anyway, right? Like that's why we're not an advertising. Yes, there is marketing involved, but like we're not going to run ads and do the SMMA stuff. Like it doesn't make sense. In the same way, you could just find a good offer that is in demand because you're independent of offer. You can sell whatever you want. Like I'm the sales info guy. I can't go sell a trading offer. You could as an IPO, right? You'll make so much more money just making that thing squeeze harder than trying to like go get 100 different lemons. Just kind of a backwards thinking. We've all been taught that since the dawn of this stuff popped off, 60 days, 16K to, we'll call it 40, more than double. That's insane. I know you said the offer for the one, but what were the biggest sort of levers you pulled that you learned from IPO for those clients?
Yeah, good question. One component of it was getting the funnel and inbound lead flow setup done correctly. Our closer at the time was taking like 40 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes to like close. And while we were able to close on call, like that was just causing a lot of friction. So what we did was we implemented a couple of setters, worked the lead flow out properly so they were doing like an effective analysis, but then also optimized just the landing page itself and made sure that there was a good communication stack between like the setters and the closers, because that's key to making sure that like it's a very seamless process. Prior to actually working with you guys, there was a lot of friction through that, and I didn't necessarily have an understanding of like how to set up those processes. Like I had a good gauge of like how to perform those roles, but in terms of like setting up an actual team and setting those guys up for success, that had more to do with like working with you guys and workshopping the problem than anything.
I just love this model so much, bro. Like you come in, you find somebody that has decent traffic already, because traffic's the hardest thing to solve for in the equation of business, and you just do the right things. From your opinion, because I know people will watch this and they'll be like, nah, he just got lucky. Like the typical bullshit people say. It's not rocket science, is it? It's very black and white. It's like a scientific process of sales needs to be done this way. This system needs to be run this way. These conversions need to be looking like this. KPI needs to look like this.
I agree 100%, man. It's about like looking at the data, making a hypothesis, and then implementing the systems. And then looking at the feedback that you get. The cool part about this setup is like, it is common sense, but it's very tangible. It's not this sort of like you see the result very immediately. So it's about making adjustments and being able to workshop the problem in my opinion.
It's like a little business video game. I always ask everybody these on these student interviews. The point of this is to just educate the public on what we're doing and then give them a real world perspective on someone that did it. Not coming from my mouth, but from you guys. Yeah. What would you say about the program in its entirety? And what would you say for someone that's maybe thinking about getting into the public launch? It is not a mass market offer, as you know. It's a very tight community. It's not $997 biz op. This is high level, advanced, private stuff. What do you think about the value you got? And then for the people that are going to be interested in getting into that public launch soon, what would you say to them?
I would say two things. Number one, lock in. Like this is not a program where you can just come in, sit down, and kind of be a fly on the wall. Like you have to be in it. You have to be willing to actually put in the work and also take the things that you learn and actually take them back to your client and have those conversations, right? Because that's a big part of it. The second thing that I would say is that it is the next step. If you're in this space, this is the thing to do. This is how you scale up. Because you can scale vertically or you can scale horizontally. I think scaling horizontally across multiple offers is a little inefficient. I think that if you scale up vertically, like you work through the offer that you're on and you actually build that up, I think that there's a lot more upside to that. So I think that is what IPO is in a nutshell. It's scaling up your skill sets so that you can vertically integrate into the company and do more than just the one component that you're taking on right now. Like I could close for like 8 to 10 clients, but there's no leverage there. Learning how to build systems for 4 to 5 clients and like really optimize their month-to-month revenues is where the value is, not just closing, not just copywriting, not just automations. It comes from navigating all 3 of those components and delivering a lot of value for your actual client.
These are your words. I have the message somewhere. You said I would have paid like 20 grand for this.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to launch public price at. Beta was 10 grand. I'm going to ask everybody this in the lead up to this. What do you think we should charge for the value you got? This is coming from you.
Man, from my perspective, I think you guys could charge like anywhere from like 15 to 20K, and it would be an appropriate return on investment because, like I said earlier, this is a space where you see the results very, very quickly. If you come into a program like this, like I did, you have the buy-in with your client to be able to ask for like, hey, let's put this together. Let's do this, what have you. If you have that leverage with your client base, this is something where you put the money into this team, into this community, and you see an immediate result.
That's how all business should be. You plug it in and you get it back out. But I do want to say I'm very proud of you. You showed up to every call. You were like a model student that you would want in something like this, especially in a beta. If someone wants to hire you as an IPO to operate their info product, how can they contact you?
Hit me up on Instagram. My handle is ejohnalex, EJONALEX.
Awesome. Well, bro, thank you for hopping on. I guess the public launch of the guys will see you. You're one of the OGs now, one of the founding members. Thank you so much. And guys, if you want to get in on the wait list for the IPO public launch, again, this is not a mass market thing. We're probably going to do 10 spots again. There is a wait list in the description of this video. Make sure you do your best on the application, because if it's not good, you're not going to get in. Put some effort in and actually try. So thank you, bro. I'll talk to you later, and have a great rest of your day.